The new 8 o'clock on CNN. Parker Spitzer, weeknights on CNN.
We have done nothing in the 111th Congress to improve the supply side of hydrocarbons that we need every day in the economy. We use 20 million barrels of oil every day, Elliot. That's 10,000 gallons a second. In 2008, when we had the last oil price spike, $147 for crude, we had all this drill baby drill rhetoric going around the country. We did nothing. We have had an anti-hydrocarbon administration that has proven by their actions that they would rather work on wind and solar and biofuels. That's where the federal money is going, and just let the oil industry, the coal industry, let them drift or hold them back, which is what they're doing now.
Now, John, I want to take the conversation first to the overseas impact, something you have written about. And let's look. We have a graphic. Let's put it up on the screen here about U.S. consumption versus worldwide consumption. And I think it is important that the public understand that foreign consumption has been going way, way up while U.S. consumption has not been. And so that foreign markets, and China in particular, are driving this pricing. Can you explain what that is doing in the marketplace?
We have never produced in the world more than 85 million barrels a day. The global system just has not been able to produce more than that. Meanwhile, China, you're absolutely right. There are more than 30 million new cars on the road in China in just the last 2 years. Over the next 2 years, there will be another 30 million cars on the roads of China. And it's India, it's Malaysia, it's the whole Asian growth syndrome, which is spiking oil demand unprecedented. By 2012, we're going to need about 90 million barrels a day to meet daily global demand. We're stuck at 85, and in the U.S., we're actually going to be in decline because of the moratorium in the Gulf of Mexico. So global demand drives the crude oil price. Crude oil price drives the gasoline price in the United States.
John, you're recommending that we go back to 1970 levels of producing 10 million gallons a day or a year?
10 million barrels a day.
Excuse me, a day, exactly. And
that's right.
So why, if we were doing that in 1970, and given that the consumption is up and all this other competition, why aren't we doing that now?
We have grown to detest drilling in this country. When we were doing 10 million barrels a day, we were drilling off the coast of California. Since the Santa Barbara spill in 1969, we've stopped new drilling off California. We can't drill in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The President said in March of this past year that we should be drilling off the East Coast and off the eastern Gulf. He's rescinded that. The Secretary of the Interior announced on December 1st that he would postpone the next 5-year plan for drilling leases from 2012 to 2017. That basically says this administration is punting on new drilling off our coasts between now and the rest of the time they're in office if they get a second term. And $5 gasoline, I think, is going to go in the face of them getting a second term because they haven't done anything about it in the meantime.
What do you think it's going to take getting gasoline prices up to $5 a gallon for something to happen? And what could happen when the prices reach that high? Americans are not going to be very eager to embrace that price.
I think they will be frustrated and they will be angry. The fact that it's an election year, the American people could say, the people in office haven't done their job. They haven't delivered affordable energy. I said to candidate Obama in 2007, to him directly, if you don't provide more hydrocarbons in the period of 2009 to 2012, you will not like the gas price which you will be running against when you go up for re-election in 2012.
Look, John, you have been a big proponent of increasing hydrocarbon capacity, but you also believe that we're supportive of the cap and trade, in other words, imposing some sort of taxation on carbon production. Why is that? And you're the rare executive who embraced that, rare oil executive who embraced that. Explain that, and where do we go now in that department?
I think if you're going to be producing hydrocarbons, you need to be responsible for the total cost, which is not just the economic cost, but the social cost as well. I believe that there is technology available to dramatically capture the carbon emissions that come from coal, gas, and oil. Let's use that technology to create wealth. A cap and trade system can create wealth for this nation. It's not just cap and tax. The cap and tax people are looking at Waxman-Markey, which was basically a cap and tax bill, because they did not follow the pattern that the United States Climate Action Partnership put together.
Well,
they've now ruined the reputation of cap and trade.
John, I want to interrupt you because I agree with you on a sort of a subtle point that people have got to understand. You said something hugely important. Capture the total cost to society of what you're producing. Economists call this an externality. You're saying put on that tax, but then you want to use it, I gather from what you're saying, to create clean coal with the sequestration of the carbon and where you submerge it below Earth, or you do it with natural gas. You want to use that tax to create alternative clean energies, even if they're carbon-based. Is that how I understand you?
Absolutely. We need a 21st century energy system to replace the old, aging 20th century energy system. Let's use technology to its fullest advantage. To be able to continue to produce coal in responsible ways, to burn that coal through pulverization and gasification. The gasification of the coal with carbon capture and sequestration puts a whole another 100-year life on the availability of clean coal, affordable electricity for the nation. The same thing could be done in reducing emissions in refineries, which if everybody had to do it, it could be done.
Look, I totally agree, which is why I think an across-the-board tax that did capture that cost would provide the funding source for the technology and the R&D you're talking about. Now, to put this in numbers, though, it is extraordinarily expensive, and the Department of Energy had been funding some of these sequestration programs, and they basically pulled back because people got scared by the money, by the dollars, about billions of dollars for each one of these coal plants. Do you think that's the direction we should be going nonetheless?
The answer, Elliot, is to raise production. If the companies could increase production, they're getting the revenue to pay the extra costs, aren't they? By raising from 7 million barrels a day to 10 million barrels a day, Lord knows we need it. We use 20 million barrels a day. That's added revenue to companies. That's higher profitability to companies. Now use some of that added profitability to put the technological improvements into refineries, into coal mining, into coal burning in coal plants, and it pays for itself because we're using more of it.